Okay, greetings everyone. My name is Dina Levitz. I am a writer, I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm a forever student of movement and meditation practices. And I'm also a volunteer with SOULFEST, which we are delighted and very excited will be back in person this year in New York City on October 1st. So in anticipation of that, I'm going to be talking with some of the presenters who will be leading classes and leading sessions at SOULFEST. And I'm so excited to be talking today to Oneika Mays. So welcome, Oneika Mays. I asked Oneika to kind of write her own little introduction in just a few sentences so that we could get to know who she is. And here's what she gave us. Oneika Mays is a joy revolutionist. She teaches yoga. She is unflinchingly authentic and extremely awkward, which I love for so many reasons. It just makes me laugh. So I got to ask Oneika before I get to my regular questions. Joy revolutionist, is that a term that you coined? Did it come from somewhere? What's the nexus?
I can't claim it. My friend Ryan Lemaire actually called me that when we did an interview together for a podcast a few years ago.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I really like that. That really feels like me. So, yeah, I think it's because I talk a lot about metta, meditation.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about love and believing that I think it's important to use the word love, but not in always this like ethereal sense that we think of it being sort of, intangible, but love being like what Ancestor Bell Hooks talks about, being nurturing, accountable, full of respect, and communication and truthfulness. And I think when we can do that, when we can show up with that definition of love, kind of anything is possible. I also think as, I'm in a Black body, I'm a queer person, I'm a woman, and in a society that kind of is looking to actively annihilate those identities, showing up with joy and love is like a form of revolution.
I love that. I don't know if I fully believe the awkward part, so we'll see about that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally awkward. I'm totally awkward. But yeah,
so. Beautiful. Well, Oneika, first question, let's start from the beginning. How did you get started in yoga and meditation? Is there sort of a first memory or a motivation that kind of got you on that path?
Yeah, I think my parents practiced yoga in the 70s. My dad, actually, I found out my dad did Kundalini for a while too. He told me when I started to become a yoga teacher. My mom used to do yoga on PBS with me actually as a toddler, and in their first apartment in New Jersey. So I always knew what yoga was, even though I wasn't practicing it until much later. My friend and coworker Caitlin Fitzsimmons was an Ashtangi when I was working at Barnes and Noble, and she mentioned I was really stressed out, and she said, you might want to think about yoga, because she was really into her practice, and I did, and I loved it, but I wasn't really ready to embrace it. Like yoga really woke me up. I remember standing, and my first like class that I did, and I put that in quotes, was a Rodney Yee VHS tape. In my living room. And I remember feeling both powerful and vulnerable standing in mountain pose. And I hadn't really felt like that before. And it was liberating, but I think it was a little intimidating too. So I liked it, but I didn't really practice it a lot. And then over a decade ago, I lost somebody who I love. I didn't lose them. He died overseas. And I found myself kind of questioning everything, because he was young. He was 30, 37. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life anymore, because I was sort of confronted with there's only one shot that we have in this body, right? This iteration of ourselves. So I ended back up on my yoga mat, going to yoga every day. And I was at Yoga to the People in New York over a decade ago in a hot yoga class with this teacher, Catherine Price is her name. And I was in chair pose.
Mhm.
Wall to wall people in Manhattan,
Imagine that.
pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
right? So sweat's flying around. It's so disgusting if you really think about it. There was so much sweat, it actually sounded like it was raining. Like that's how sweaty everybody was in the silence. And she said, you can be comfortable or change, but you can't do both at the same time.
Mhm.
And I started crying, and I kind of realized that I was about to start my life over, even though I didn't know what it would look like.
Mhm.
And not long after that, I started doing a yoga teacher training, and found meditation as well. And I kind of never looked back, and in
Yeah.
fact, sort of just deepened everything. I became a massage therapist, a
Wow.
Reiki practitioner. I studied therapeutic yoga, yoga for cancer and chronic illness,
Wow.
trauma sensitive yoga. Yeah. So
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So obviously you found a lot of value. That kind of leads into my next question, which is, now many years later, I believe you've been practicing for more than a few decades. You've been teaching for more than a decade. What is it about the practice? What is it about yoga and meditation that lights you up, that continues to make it something that's a passion for you?
I think I think for a long time I was uncomfortable in my own skin for a
Mhm.
variety of reasons that I don't even know if it's really important to go into. But what yoga did was give me a sense of comfort in my own body. And I found myself reacting less to the world and responding instead.
Mhm.
It gave me tools to help me, I think, emotionally regulate.
Mhm.
It made me feel liberated, and I felt like these were practices that I wanted to share with other people. And
Yeah.
I still feel that way.
Mhm.
And while my asana practice is different,
Mhm.
um, and I still love it, and I still
Yeah.
practice asana all the time,
Yeah.
it's more about how the yoga, I think, has just changed the way that I show up in the world.
Mm.
And that is
Mm.
why I think I still practice. And it's a way to live rather than just something to do.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Being yoga, not just doing
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And whether it's Oneika, whether it's on the mat or off of the mat, who or what inspires you?
Oh,
I know it's a big question.
yeah. Who's inspiring me right this moment,
Yeah,
right? Like right in this moment, because it can change, I think, even minute to minute.
yeah.
I think I'm really inspired by uh, my niece and nephew, Luca
Oh,
and
oh,
Pia. I was just talking to my partner Andrea before we hopped on, and
yeah.
I was just saying how Luca is like 3.5,
Mm,
and I was on the phone with my sister, and then she handed the phone to him, and he FaceTimed me, and he just does this now. And
yeah.
so my FaceTime's ringing. I'm like, Luke, are you FaceTiming me? And he's like, yeah, yo yo. He calls me yo yo. He's like, yeah, yo yo, pick up. And so I think I'm inspired by him, his infinite sense of curiosity and his infinite capacity to love and question and just show up with whatever he's feeling in the moment. I
Mm,
find very inspiring. I'm also inspired lately. I just started, last weekend was the first weekend of a 200-hour meditation teacher training
oh.
that I'm co-facilitating with some unbelievable teachers. And that cohort was so vulnerable and courageous and brave in the way that they showed up for that first weekend, that I was just moved to tears.
Mm,
Um, there's been so much that's been happening in the world that has made me full of rage and also of hope.
mm.
And so being with that cohort let me feel um, like we might be okay, right? If more
Oh,
people are starting to show up. It was really moving. So I think those are two big teachers for me right now. And I think that just goes to that larger sense of community is what I'm really talking about.
yeah.
Community is what it has been inspiring me. And maybe it's because we've been apart for so
Mm,
long.
sure.
Um, yeah. And I've never been like a joiner, right? I think I've always been on the fringes of things. And so one of my lessons that I've been trying to work through on my own journey that's never ending is trying to show up more in community,
Mhm.
and not thinking that I have to do things by myself, or
Mhm.
that by myself is the right way to do things, because I think we are stronger when we show up together.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah. Yeah. So much of what you just said resonates with me. And I have a niece that's 3.5 also. So I get that that age group is just so beautiful, so just full of life. So I
Mhm.
totally get that. Yeah. She's
Yeah.
inspires me endlessly. I started teaching kids yoga during the pandemic too. So yeah,
Oh,
I get
wow.
that love of, yeah, little kids are just, oh, so great. So yeah, they
Yeah.
teach us. So my next question, Oneika, tell us about either a morning or an evening ritual that you have that's become essential to you, whether it's something that kind of gives you joy, calm,
Mhm.
helps you sleep, something that you kind of can't live without.
Yeah, every morning I get up fairly early for actually every day. I teach meditation actually at Rikers Island Correctional Facility. That's like
Yeah.
my main gig right now. And so I get up at around 4:45, and in my tiny hallway, because hallway might mean long, but it's not. I live in Brooklyn in a small apartment. But there's this little hallway that goes to my bathroom, and I have an altar set up, and half of the altar is like with family and things that have inspired me who are living, and then the other half of the altar are for ancestors and people who have recently transitioned.
Mm,
And I keep it in the hallway rather than sort of at this place, because every time I walk by the hallway, I can honor folks. But in
mm.
the morning is when I stop there before, like I go to the bathroom and hop in the shower, just to like give thanks,
Ah,
and to remember, and also to listen, to see if there's something that I need to be paying attention to in the day. And I do that every morning without
mm,
fail. I stop. And I love that because I can be really scattered, and having something that I love so much and is so powerful to me, and doing it every day, really, I think keeps me grounded.
mm.
I have a lot of kapha energy, but as I'm getting older, I feel like there's part of me that is very vata too. So I think sometimes too vata, and I'm sort of like up here all the time in my head. So that grounding, and seeing that altar whenever I'm passing it is a deep sense of grounding, and honoring it every morning is, I think, a powerful way for me to start my day, and remembering community, remembering that I'm more than just me and
Yeah.
part of something bigger.
Ah, that's lovely. Yeah. Starting your day with gratitude, with remembrance. That sounds like a lovely way to ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question, if whether at SOULFEST or elsewhere, if somebody were to take a class with you or to have kind of an experience or a session with you, what are they in for? What's a class with Oneika like? How would
Oh,
you describe
well, you know what? A class with
it?
Oneika could really vary depending upon
Yeah.
who's in the room at the
Yeah.
time. Um, I've been really inspired over the past several years by Adrienne Marie Brown and her book Emergent Strategy.
Mm,
And the one principle of emergent strategy that I have found profoundly transformative is, when she talks about that there's only one conversation that people in the room can have who are gathered, and it's our job to find it. And I
mm,
think that's what happens when I now teach. I used to think that teaching was like all about me and the class I provided.
mm,
And then as I grew and evolved, I realized that I have very little to do with it, right? And the study that I've done is really important, of course, right? Because we need to know what we know. We need to keep learning, but I can rely on that. I can rely on my teachers and my ancestors, and also handing all of that over to the folks who are in the room at the time, and allowing myself to be inspired with whatever energy is in the room, and kind of
mm,
going from there. Even if I have an idea, maybe something that I want to talk about, anybody could shift what happens, and bring up some inquiry into something, and that might inspire. So it can really vary, but I
yeah.
think it's always infused with loving kindness and compassion. And I hope authenticity. Like sometimes I show up and I'm awkward. I taught for Yoga International on Tuesday. I'm teaching with them for the month, and I kind of just let myself flow and see what was going to happen. And so like I was, I did a sequence, and I honestly don't even remember it right now because I kind of just channeled it as I was doing it. But then I remembered the next day at work, I was waiting for somebody to come do a meditation student to come into my office. And then I said, "Ah, shit, I didn't do pigeon on the other side." And I started cracking up because, of course, that's the one thing that I would hold on to, right? Like a sequence that people were like, "Oh, this class was great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much." And then here I am focusing on like the one thing that I forgot to do. So I think the one thing that people can expect is for me to show up authentically for folks who are there. And I think that's important in holding space. And then we see what we co-create together. It might mean maybe I forget to do pigeon on one side, but
I'm sure they forgive you. Yeah.
Exactly. You know what?
Yes.
No one's probably even thinking about that, right? Like that's such a thing that I think we do as teachers. We focus on the thing that we forgot versus all of the stuff that we offer and share. So, that's a way to not answer the question at all, but come take class with me and we'll figure it out together and we'll co-create it together. And it will be whatever experience you need it to be.
Yes, co-create, exactly. It's such a good word for it. You never know what you're going to go get. Come to Oneika's class. So I got to ask about the last couple of years. To say that it's been, I don't know, there's not even a word for what the last few years have been like. But I'm curious to know, especially teaching yoga and meditation during this time, what have you learned about yourself?
I have learned that I had a lot of vicarious trauma from the work that I do in a jail that I realized I hadn't quite processed. So the first part of the pandemic was a chance for me to rest. And that was both nourishing, and that I also felt some guilt not being able to be with my students who were at Rikers for such a long period of time, and both being grateful for the opportunity to rest, and then also just really reinforcing my desire to figure out new modes and modalities of healing and accountability in this world. And so sort of recommitted to my teaching, but in a different way. I didn't teach that much yoga towards this last part of the pandemic. I did it first. I was teaching online like a lot of people were. But then I really dove more into my mindfulness practice and teaching that online. It was an opportunity for me to connect with family in a way that I hadn't before either. And I'm grateful for that because I know so many people lost so much. And I was able to gain some things even amidst all of that loss. I was also able to connect with so many incredible teachers online who I hadn't been connected with before. And that I think was a really powerful experience. And that I think was lovely. And I think rest is the really big thing that I realized that I always talked about was really important, but I wasn't really walking that walk. And then to really rest, I realized like, oh yeah, I really have not been resting all this time. And now I know what it's like, and I won't go back. And I think I won't go back to some ways that I used to move through the world. A lot less striving. A lot less striving.
As you said, rest, healing. So many of us, I don't think, realize that we needed it.
There was a lot of grief too.
Yes.
My father had died. My father died September before the pandemic, and then I had gone away to co-facilitate a retreat in Costa Rica, and then got back in January, and then we went into the pandemic in March. And so I was kind of still just reeling from, my father's transition and sort of this deep work that I did in Costa Rica to go right into the pandemic. So there was a lot of grief I was also processing too. So it was just this time, and I'm infinitely full, like just so grateful for the amount of time that I had to truly process and spend time with my mom, like virtually at first, and my sister and my brother, like we were able to kind of be together for
Yeah.
a longer amount of time than I think we would have had the world just been going on and we were
Yes.
trying to figure out how to move on without my dad. So I
Yeah.
think that was another a gift.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. That's a lot to go through.
Mhm.
Absolutely. On a related, but maybe less heavy note, during the pandemic, some people baked bread. They did, I don't know, jump rope. They did all sorts of like taking up different hobbies and creative pursuits. Is there something that you did as kind of like a release or just something silly or creative that you hadn't really done before?
Well, I got back to writing.
Oh,
I dove really deep into writing in the second year of the pandemic,
yeah.
and worked on a creative project that I'm shopping around now, so there'll be more about it soon. But that was a lot of fun, and I was able to do that with a friend of mine from high school. So that was incredible to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the big thing. And I did a lot of walking with my partner. We did a lot of walking,
Yeah.
which was really quite lovely. I'm in Brooklyn now, but I used to live in Jersey City. So we would walk around Liberty State Park. We quarantined for the first part in Jersey City. So
Mm,
we'd walk miles. We'd walk 10, 12 miles a day just
yep.
walking around. So yeah, that was something that I really appreciated.
Yes, I love walking too. I live in Manhattan. I would walk to Brooklyn and I would
Hmm.
walk back, and that would be my adventure for the day and
Yeah.
my meditation. Yes. So I get that. My next question is, a lot of people out there think that for a variety of reasons, yoga and meditation maybe as well are not for them.
Mhm.
What would you tell somebody who has that kind of objection, or maybe they just are reluctant to kind of dip their toe into it? What would
Mhm.
you? Yeah.
I think that yoga is for everybody. Um, and I think when we start to shift the way that we've been talking about yoga, which I think has started to happen,
Yeah.
and we have more representation with different teachers teaching yoga,
Yeah.
with different identities, lots of people will see that yoga is definitely for them.
Yeah.
And I would encourage somebody who is maybe new to yoga, to do homework and research teachers. Online or at different studios if you're sort of going back into the studio world, and find a teacher that you really connect with. You may try a class with a teacher that maybe doesn't resonate with you, and that's okay. And knowing that it's also like, forging a relationship. So you may have to investigate some different places before you find like your folks.
Yeah, that's true. And they could give SOULFEST a try, and it's a
Absolutely.
free festival. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And so many incredible teachers who are teaching
Yes.
at SoulFest. And I think that's what's really beautiful about the SoulFest experience.
Yeah.
Um, that there's so many different kinds of teachers and so many different ways to practice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one more question that I'm asking everybody, and then I have one specifically for you. But if you had a theme song, what would that theme song be? Maybe it's a song that kind of gets you going, gets you dancing. Or if imagine you're a TV show, what would be your sort of walk up music, if you will?
Um, my walk-up music. Oh, there's a song "We Are" by
Mhm.
Kimani Marley that I really love. And I have delusions of grandeur of leading a yoga class with thousands of people, and that song playing as I come out. Um,
Do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, "We Are" Kimani Marley. I love it, love it, love it.
Okay, give it a listen. And then, and then the last question, you mentioned a few times, kind of your involvement at Rikers, that you're the mindfulness coach. What
Mhm.
is it that would surprise people about kind of teaching meditation to prisoners?
I think the first thing that some people might find surprising about teaching meditation to folks who are incarcerated is that meditation is meditation, and people are people wherever you go.
Yeah,
So people, I think, are always like, well, what's that like for them? And I always sort of offer back. It's like, well, what was meditation like
like
for
for
you?
you.
Because it's like for it's I think the experience of meditation is for whatever that person is, but I think in that environment of Rikers, because it is violent, because it is loud, and people are under a tremendous amount of stress
Yeah.
and a deep sense of not knowing of what's going to happen and uncertainty, that I hope I can allow space for people to get what they need from it.
Mm.
Whether it's 5 minutes of quiet, whether it's folks who already have a practice who just want a place to sit.
Yeah.
There's I do yoga with folks as well. I
Mm.
do mindfulness and show self massage techniques for folks who might be in discomfort or pain because the beds are so uncomfortable. So it really varies.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot like what I do outside,
Mm.
to be honest, and I think that might surprise people.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful the work that you do. I'm so excited to see your class that you're going to lead at SOULFEST. And thank you so much for talking with me and being so authentic, being so honest and I would say not awkward.
Oh, the awkwardness is inside. Like,
Okay.
give me a minute, and it certainly creeps out. But thank you so much, Dina. I really appreciate you
Absolutely.
taking time to talk with
Yeah.
me.
Thank
Thank you,
you so
thank you.
much. Have a
Yeah,
blessed day.
yeah, you too. Be well.
Bye.